Yeah, it's a lot easier to tell someone to avoid gluten, for example, and like it's a lot easier to avoid that than these other conversations. But also, it's like as you speak to the other, practitioners, and some of these different events that you and I go to, we're speaking to, we're talking about mold, and they're in denial because they live in it. They live in it, and they're struggling. And there's so many, again, from that, it becomes very difficult, and it can be frustrating again as the provider talking to these people. Plus, you're trying to, your own health that you're trying to recover from, the damage, that happened, regarding your wife. You're trying to support her. You're trying to support your kids. I definitely empathize with you as far as how difficult it can be. And again, I'm having these conversations, where I'm talking to patients. I may be in my Sprinter van. I may be outside of a cafe. I'm doing a webinar, and there's birds chirping in the background because I'm outside. Because again, we're just determined not to live in mold. Real quick, we bought a brand new house from a well-known national builder down in Arizona a couple of years ago, and we closed on the house. And my wife didn't, she walks into the laundry room after the closing, and she's like, I don't feel well in this room. Something's the matter. So we called them over. They took a look. Nothing's the matter, with it. 2 days later, we start using the washing machine, and then there is a leak coming from under the drywall into that area. My wife was able to detect it. We were in a brand new house in Costa Rica, which may not be surprising necessarily for Costa Rica, but it just kind of goes, where how people can use their gut to feel this. There was one particular part of the house we were staying in, brand new house, gorgeous house. And my wife's like, I don't feel well. Something's the matter with this wall. We told the owners about it. They live right next door. They built the exact same house. So they built two of them. We were staying, they turned one into an Airbnb. The other was theirs. And then the rains come into Costa Rica, and there's water streaming down the wall that my wife said was the problem area. Peter, I've got so many stories like that. And again, it's kind of a blessing and a curse, no doubt, because I mean, the blessing is the sense of you get the warning signs of that where you're like, okay, I know the warning sign now. I'm never going to live in it. But the problem is now it's so bad, and every house is so affected. That's why, again, I consider myself um, the world's greatest preventive cardiologist. And I live in a $500 tent from North Face. We have inflatable mattresses that are eco-friendly, that have no, forever chemicals to the best of our ability with that. It's impossible there. You can actually buy organic latex rubber toppers on Amazon. Like a 3-inch topper that's a twin size. Those are easily mobile. The key to tent camping, though, especially if you do it for a duration, is you got to lift up the tent because moisture collects under the tent. So you have to lift up the mattress. You have to lift up the tent on its side. It's forever a learning process. But, again, I saw my father sick and die at the age of 63. It's very motivational for that not to be me.
Yeah, yeah, I think I agree. To me, if you don't have your health, it doesn't matter. Everything else is irrelevant. And if your family doesn't have their health and you're suffering from their suffering, and nothing matters. Nothing else is really important when that's going on. So I'm more of an absolutist. If I have a problem, I'm going to get out of that problem. When we recovered, we moved into a hotel for 2 months, and it was only while we were trying to fix, because we live on a farm, so we couldn't leave our animals. So we had to try to figure out a way to not, live on our property, but not live in that mold box. And
Yeah.
so 5 miles down the road, there's an extended stay hotel. We kind of recovered partially in that. It was less moldy, probably had some mold in it. It was, not perfect, but it was so much better that the lights turned back on in my wife's brain. So I mean,
Yeah.
we knew that the exposure was far less there than it was where we were at. And then from there, it was a mobile home, built inside indoors inside of a factory. So we knew didn't have any, at least didn't have any water damage from the build, and dry materials were used. But that was our short term solution. Was it ideal? No. Was it frustrating? Yes. Is it the way we wanted to live? No. But to me, did health return? Yes. So ultimately, it doesn't matter to me. Home is your family, and if your family's not there, not present, and sick, then it doesn't matter what you live in or where you live and what kind of material possessions that you're nervous about walking away from. I mean, to me, all that's very easy at this point. It gave me a very different perspective on life for sure.
Yeah, and a lot of people would say, "Oh, well, listen, Peter, Jack, you guys are, successful doctors. You make plenty of money and stuff like that." Um, but the reality is that pretty much anybody can, you can use a website like HipCamp. You can go boondock on somebody's property, maybe a friend's property. You can ask your friends on Facebook. You can go to national parks, and you can tent camp. And frankly, it's very cheap to do so. I mean, you think about what I could be paying in a mortgage right now. I'm just on somebody's property in Sandpoint, Idaho. And uh, um, if you and your wife accept, the kids will go along with it. The kids don't care. The kids think it's the greatest time ever. We have 7 and 4-year-old daughters. They could care less. Like you said, home is where the heart is, where the family is. It's not the actual structure. The home is your family unit, and the kids don't care. I have a 13-year-old son. He kind of struggles with a little bit because he would like to have a closet back, right? He would actually have his closet where he knows where his mountain biking gear is, and he knows where, his pajamas are, as opposed to living out of duffel bags. Our 17 or actually now 18-year-old, his company is called We're Outside, that he's building, and it's about getting kids out of tech, and out of the classroom and getting them back into the outdoors. He knows what it's like because he is a canary in the coal mine as well. He feels lousy when he is in these damaged structures, so he gets it, fully. So it's been an experience. I believe undoubtedly God put us on this journey in order to be able to wake up other people. How many people I mean, kids with ear infections, throat infections, the doctors remove the tonsils, the adenoids. You mentioned, people who are crazy. Yeah, there's a lot of crazy freaking people out there. And the answer is not Prozac. The answer is to figure out why they're crazy. It's like crazy. If we say that that's a diagnosis, then it behooves us to figure out why they are crazy. Why are they struggling with anxiety, fear, worry, depression, suicidal ideations, all these different things? Why are they crazy? It's not because they've got a genetic they don't have the crazy gene. There is no crazy gene. It's all because of these environmental toxins and pollutants that destroy our brain, this neuroinflammation. And every neurologist knows about neuroinflammation. They just don't have a clue as to why. And that's where, professionals like you and I come in. So again, thank you.
Yeah, likewise. What else can you add? I mean, what any other things that you feel like we haven't discussed or touched on that you feel like would be super helpful for people to walk away from this conversation, understanding that might help them on their journey out of mold?
Well, again, like, been there, done that, continue to talk to people. I think in a lot of situations, in things, I'll speak for myself. I've said a lot of things over the years that have led to a lot of marital relationship issues. Things that we've said that have led to divorce amongst people. And again, maybe it was an unshaky marriage and, it was not a faith-based, faith-centered marriage, of course, in these situations. But for these people who are out there, specifically all the women who are out there are people there who understand this, that get this, that can help you with this, whether it's Dr. Osborne, myself, or many, many, many others, who can help in this arena. There's tons of Facebook groups, right? I mean, you get into some of these like toxic mold support groups, Peter, and you see like hundreds of thousands of people in there, and half of them are women who want to kill themselves. Like, I mean, this is a serious, and you can see the stories about how it led to, family issues, work-related issues. How many people work in mold, in moldy buildings, moldy offices, moldy structures, cars, all these things. So again, I think that there are a lot of people who can help support, other biohacking strategies, that can help. I think that whether it's, sauna, red light therapy, ozone, hyperbaric, maybe even things like tissue plasma exchange or plasmapheresis can provide people some benefits there. Just anything that helps to replace the cell membrane, all the components of that. I believe, again, the best food for that is eating fish, If you're a shellfish eater, great. If you're not a shellfish eater and you just will eat fish, you got to eat the fish. All that is, loaded with phosphatidylcholine, and that is the main components of cell membranes. Of course, cholesterol is a major component of cell membrane, so we want to feed ourselves cholesterol-rich foods in order to replenish, that cell membrane. There's some supplements in that arena that could be helpful. I don't know if you, have thoughts on, one product in particular is Body Bio's PC. It's a glass bottled product. They're phosphatidylcholine. There's also IV phosphatidylcholine. A lot of these are soy derived, non-GMO soy. There's a lot of consternation about that as well. But I think that's, kind of, replacing those old, damaged, oxidized cell membranes would be helpful. As well. And then we talked about some of the binders in that arena, but just understanding you will not get healthy in the same environment where you got sick. I talked about that, the truth about cancer in 2016. You cannot heal in the same environment where you got sick. You have to change up the environment. Again, it's a long road, but it is a road nonetheless.
Do you have any opinions on the popularity of people going carnivore? What I have personally seen in my own practice is every person that did super well with carnivore was in mold. And when we get them out of mold, they can start reintroducing foods again. But have you had any experience with the carnivore diet helping people at all?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think it's probably easiest on the person with that intestinal hyperpermeability or leaky gut because you're not getting a lot of those undigested food proteins maybe coming in that relies on, and also, listen, mold is a hepatotoxin. And if you damage your liver, all bets are off. It leads to abnormal lipids, inflammation, oxidative stress. When you damage the liver, it no longer produces LDL receptors to clear out old LDL oxidized particles. You develop disease from that. So, we do find that in that sense of as we go to something like carnivore, again, you're providing some of the most nutrient dense foods in the world. I think where a lot of carnivore people fail is they don't eat seafood. I think that's a major mistake. I think seafood is the healthiest food on the planet. People with the highest levels of omega-3 fatty acids in their blood have the longevity, have the vitality, lowest risk of heart attack, stroke, AFib, cancer, dementia, you name it. So eating seafood, I think, is always a good strategy. But listen, my book is the paleo cardiologist, right? So I'm the paleo guy. I'm not the carnivore guy. I'm not the keto guy. I think carnivore can help you with a short-term improvement, but I don't personally think that for the majority of people, it's the long-term strategy, only because our ancestors were not obligate carnivores. But certainly carnivore is a lot cleaner than the vast majority of diets that people are consuming. So.
I agree with you. I don't think it's a long-term solution. I have a theory that when people cut out plant-based foods, a lot of what they're really doing is going grain-free because a lot of people they don't go gluten-free and then go carnivore. They just go from a standard American diet to carnivore. And so they're actually a lot of the benefits they're reaping are just gluten grain-free changes. They're trying to eat more organic and less chemicals. But I also believe that a lot of the plant-based foods are contaminated with mold because of the way we farm. And so mold and mycotoxins are very heavily present. And I think 30% of the grain crop in the world is contaminated with mold, probably higher than that, but that was a recent estimate. I know we have problems the way we feed animals conventionally with tons of grain. Like when you eat conventional animal meat, there's a greater risk of mycotoxin exposure through the meat. And so if you're eating, fresh, non-farm raised, grass-fed, grass-finished, or wild caught, you're reducing the potential for mycotoxin exposure. And I've just seen cases where people are so hypersensitized, like when we do their food testing. I don't know if you've seen this trend, but people that are in mold oftentimes will light up an IgE test. Like they're going to have 10 or more, acute IgE responses to foods. They're going to have a lot more delayed responses to foods. And so going carnivore for a lot of those people, it's like an elimination diet of sorts. That's just been my experience, but I agree. I don't think it's a long-term solution. I think ultimately you've got to be able to eat with the season and eat what is good and what is healthy and what we can get. but to restrict to just that, I think ultimately we see a lot of deficiency in those people too when we test them, like 10 or more vitamin and mineral deficiencies on testing when they've been on carnivore long term.
Yeah, I think, to your point too, when you grain feed the animals, there's so many problems with that. But that's where a lot of the data on the binders comes from, that the binders are effective because the ranchers are not going to turn. I don't want to say that they're ranchers. I mean, obviously they run those who run the factory farms, they know how deleterious it is. They're not going to turn those cows out to pasture. They're just going to try binders, and that's where some of the data on the binders comes from, to bind up some of those toxins. But and just for some of these people that again, like you run some of these food panels and they're sensitive just about everything. It's just their gut is a total sieve, and I think it's a lot of it is starting from all those things that damage the gut microbiome. And I think also the mold is stronger than it was in the days of the biblical authors, right? The mold is just it's advanced, it's learned how to survive. And maybe it releases more toxins than ever because of the EMF, because of all the other environmental things that the mold is exposed to as well. That the mold changes and morphs and gets worse over time is also a factor. But I mean, there's really so much to discover in this. I mean, listen, just spend more time outside, even if you live in, like you said, the mold box. And we love the term, but United States in the Northern Hemisphere, it's very easy to be outside. Now, what do you do though if you live in Buffalo, my hometown of Chicago? You live in some of these areas, and and we said this before. If you're you got to move. And not to mention, I mean, when you live in a mold box and you're in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it's January, right? You're not getting outside. You're in the poison. You get no sunshine, zero vitamin D production. I mean, you're done. You're done. You're done. You cannot survive that, and people don't. People don't. So, all we can do is try and give people the best, answers. Hey, listen, move to Costa Rica, move to, Southern Caribbean. Oh, well, I can't because my job, my family. Okay, then, good luck. Good luck. I don't know what else to, what else to say.
Well, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you taking time out of your tent to come and join me.
No, it's a pleasure, and I appreciate you having me on. And again, God put people like you you and I on this journey, and our families on this journey, in order to share this message. For so many people who just don't have the answers, they're just sitting there, and no one listens to them. They don't know why they're sick. They're being medicated to death. They're being surgically chopped up, to death. I did a social media post yesterday condemning mammograms and the fact that mammograms, according to their literature, save like 1 out of 2,000 lives. So 2,000 women get a mammogram every 2 years for 10 years. It prevents one person from dying. That's according to their literature. And we need to focus on, why do women get breast cancer? And I think, again, cancer is because we are immunosuppressed. Why are we immunosuppressed? Well, one of the most famous immunosuppressants from a pharmacological standpoint is a pharmaceutical called Cellcept, CELLCEPT. And Cellcept we give to people who get an organ transplant. You get a new liver, a new heart, new kidney. We give you something to suppress your immune system so your immune system doesn't attack the new organ. What is Cellcept? It is only mycophenolic acid in a capsule. So pharma knows how powerful it is. They put it in a capsule. And we can test people's mycophenolic acid levels in their urine, and a lot of people come up elevated. So if you're living in a home of water damage mold, secreting mycophenolic acid, it's getting into your system. What do you think it's doing to your immune system? So crazy. Crazy, scary, the whole thing. But and now when you have immunosuppression, now you develop COVID, now you develop infections, now you develop cancer, because your immune system does not go on to surveil the maybe spontaneous mutations, or toxin-induced mutations in our DNA, in our ability to police our bodies. And this immunodysfunction is really just key, and what's main driving factor of immunodysfunction is living in water damage, mold, and bacteria.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Dr. Jack, appreciate you. It's been a great conversation. I hope you
Thank you, my
and
friend.
your family do well and get to Costa Rica and get that new place going, mold free and mold proof as much as you can.
Will do. Thank you.
Yeah, take care.